The history of the United Kingdom is a history of leaders, a history of prime ministers, and the history of prime ministers is a history of shits. There have been, I should have checked, but loads of prime ministers, and each prime minister has had his or her, but mainly his, own particular style of defecation. Here are some highlights, because some were really dull and there are a bunch I've never heard of before. Boris Johnson took several months of intense training, but was finally persuaded to at least defecate into a corner so it won't get in the way. A schism was formed between Johnson and American President Joe Biden after Biden accidentally slipped on one of Johnson's steaming stools. Theresa May has always publicly denied that she needs to use the toilet, and even went to the extent of having all lavatories removed from 10 Downing Street. Following much upset, several dirty protests, and an unknown number of destroyed carpets, she had to have them all put in place again. David Cameron always cries when launching a torpedo, sobbing loudly and occasionally screaming. He proudly told us, "Using the toilet paper, I first wipe my tears and then my back passage. It's cheaper and more environmentally friendly than a wet wipe, though it does sting a bit." Gordon Brown liked to assert his dominance by laying his bricks in front of people, suddenly dropping his trousers and pants without warning, and then squatting. While maintaining eye contact throughout, he would repeatedly and loudly say, "Gordon Brown is going brown." Tony Blair would do the royal squat over the wall into the garden of number 11, laughing the whole time. It is speculated that Gordon Brown was spurred to replace Blair as Prime Minister because of this several times daily event. Brown said Friday was his curry day, so Saturday was the worst. John Major had one visit to the shithouse scheduled each day and refused to use it at any other time. His Chancellor, Norman Lamont, spoke of him, saying, "I've never seen another man crying because he was refusing himself the chance to take a dump." Margaret Thatcher would often poop into other people's underwear. At cabinet meetings, she would assign somebody as her number 2 and then use their underwear as her own personal toilet. The person would then be unable to remove them without her permission, which could take several weeks. Thatcher was also well known for shitting on the miners and taking away our free school milk, the bitch. Anyway, I'm getting bored now, so let's skip a few. Harold Wilson would release the chocolate hostages into a special silver bucket and then stuff a selection from it into his trademark pipe. At one point, the smell became so bad that Parliament had to be evacuated, demolished, the pieces individually scrubbed, and then rebuilt. Jeremy Biscuits tricks Parliament, the press, the British public, and, most impressively, his wife, into believing he was Prime Minister for a whole 2 hours. This makes him the only UK PM to have not had a chance to drop the kids off at the pool. Despite never officially holding office, Biscuits is considered one of the better PMs. Winston Churchill had a personal pooper installed in the front row of Parliament so he could make a mud pie whenever he wanted or was too drunk to stand up. He would usually break for an opposition speech before punishing the porcelain. On one particular occasion, a volley of his farts was recorded as being 140 decibels, as loud as a jet engine. Neville Chamberlain often had to be excused from Parliament after soiling himself. Chamberlain would famously let anybody who asked cut in front of him in the line for the parliamentary box. Is the only acknowledged paedophile Prime Minister. He loved to indulge in the practice of with young boys and would use their to. Sometimes he would even and then oh good God and then with a dog. Arthur Wellesley, famous for being the first Duke of Wellington, so I imagine he would have done his business into a Wellington boot. Archibald Crumbles is known as the Forgotten PM after his first act in Parliament was to lock himself in a toilet and refuse to come out. Crumbles, who was soon replaced as PM, remained in the crap house for over 20 years, surviving on tap water and pancakes that were pushed under the door by concerned nuns. Benjamin Disraeli and William Gladstone faced off against each other in the parliamentary crapper contest. Disraeli brought in a new system of voting, each candidate represented by a lav into which voters would make fudge, with the winner decided by whomsoever Ziz's Kazi would be filled first. For reasons of transparency, this would have to be done in the open, in front of everyone else you know. Gladstone, who found it impossible to go with an audience, went on to introduce the ballot act to ensure a private vote. Disraeli then dumped stool all over Gladstone, and the two ended up fighting each other to the death, with Disraeli winning or not winning, I guess. Spencer Perceval is well known as the only British Prime Minister to have been assassinated. However, what is less well known is that Perceval was killed after blowing mud and then not flushing. Witnesses report there was also a particularly large floater. William Pitt was rhyming slang, I guess. Both of them. The old one for a big shit, and the young one for a little shit. Something like that. This guy, or this guy, or this guy, or maybe even this guy, used to eat their own natural chocolate for breakfast every morning. Do you know how many prime ministers this country had? Like loads and loads. So many. Jonathan Johnny Toilet became Prime Minister shortly after inventing the toilet. Prior to this, people would let their dung fall out onto the floor wherever they were. But when toilet droppings accidentally fell into a hole, inspiration struck and the world would never be the same again. Terence Gravy served as the UK's first and, to date, only zombie Prime Minister. Gravy only released the payload one single time, which was described in contemporary records as likely the only thing in history to smell even worse than Gravy himself. Jesus H. Christ gave up on a career in religion after several setbacks and a minor crucifixion incident to move to the UK and take up politics. The Son of God would silence his opposition by magically making his doo-doo appear in their mouths. Thrag, the first Neanderthal Prime Minister, infamously banned the eating of mud pies in Parliament, though he did allow shit-slinging to continue, and it remains a standard parliamentary practice to this day. Thrag would eat stones to give his extra weight and strength. Sir Cuthbert was the world's first Prime Minister, and also the tallest Prime Minister in history. Sir Cuthbert dealt with his opponents by eating them and then anally ejecting their bones during sessions in the world's first Parliament. And there was also this cat. The cat was never Prime Minister, but the internet still likes cats, doesn't it? I'm sure it does. So here's a cat to look at for a while. Enjoy the cat. Thank you for watching. Thinking I should have put the cat earlier. But if you are still watching, thank you very much. Please like and subscribe.